folks. I'm Adam Kujawa, Director of Malwarebytes Labs, and today we're going to be doing a panel talking to a few of our experts about cybersecurity and what they deal with, what they observe, and we got a few questions for them. So before we get started, let's go ahead and do some introductions. Why don't you guys just go down the line and go ahead.
Hi, I'm Krishnan Dhandapani. I work for Wells Fargo, and I work on security architecture, application security, and penetration testing and all these activities. I have been with them for about 10 years now.
Cool. I'm Sbano. I'm head of security at Periscope Data. Mostly worked in financial services prior to this, but it's my first time at a startup kind of doing everything security, privacy, and compliance.
I'm Stacie Munoz. I'm the Director of Educational Technology at the Urban School, which is a private high school in the Haight. We have about 420 students and 100 adults, and I do most of the purchasing and overseeing of everything that makes sure they can study and do their work at school.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Akshay, and I'm the Senior Vice President of Products at Malwarebytes.
Senior Vice President, and a table full of directors. You feel fancy. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and get in. Oh, real quick, I want to ask you a question. You ever seen the movie Sneakers?
No.
No, it's with Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd. It's about a bunch of guys who, like old-time hacker guys who rob a bank. Well, the first part is, and I thought that'd be funny.
Okay.
Interesting. It's a good movie. It's a good movie. It's fun. If you haven't seen it, see it. Hackers 2, I also am a big fan of that one.
It's a classic.
Yeah. All right, so let's answer some questions here. First of all, what are you most concerned about for your industry? Data theft, ransomware, or something else? Why and what are you doing about it? So let's just go ahead and kind of do a quick everybody answer.
Cool.
And
We are more concerned about, obviously, theft of money. So that's the end point, and then like hackers, as I have seen, have try in all ways and means to try to get at it. They try phishing, social engineering. When you get your system really hardened, then they'll try social engineering, and that is, you train the engineers to do the right thing. Then they try every other technique. And then they're always seeking out personal data that's available out there, which they can corroborate to steal the money. So that is the biggest concern.
do you feel like you get a big load of attacks, like you get attacked a lot? Or you see a lot of attacks come across your...
Almost, all the time.
All the time?
They never sleep. I mean, the clock is 24 hours around the world. So, yeah,
I can't imagine.
there is no sleeping time.
All right, time.
Yeah, so at Periscope Data, we're a business intelligence tool for SaaS-based solutions in a SaaS company.
SaaS.
Data. Data is the new oil, right? Data is more valuable than oil at this point. And I think when we take a step back and look at our threat model and our attack surface, it's really the exposure and the data theft. So not only that, getting access or getting a foothold into someone's database is a huge concern for us. So making sure from the standpoint of our infrastructure, really practically deploying something like Zero Trust is absolutely critical, because we are entrusted by our customers that are having these visualizations, these real-time intelligence and analytics coming out of their databases to really run the business model. And if they have integrity issues, or if they just have all of a sudden everything show up on Pastebin, it's going to be a tough world for them. So we look up and down the organization, and I think the biggest thing for me in my role, I've only been with the company for about a year, is that our CEO literally says we are a data company. And if we have a data security event, we may not be a company. So I have this competitive advantage in my role to say, well, I have the backing of literally every person in this org to do this thing. And we come together and form this squad to really protect data on the forefront for our customers.
Do you feel like data policy, like GDPR or whatever else might roll out here in the States, eventually make your job easier or harder?
GDPR is one of those things that general data privacy regulation is critical. The good thing for us is we've set that as our bar, and we're not limiting it just to EU customers or customers that have EU data. GDPR is just how we operate.
Cool.
So when it comes to California's Consumer Privacy Act, that's actually already started. It goes into effect in 2020, but the Look Back Act, if folks haven't started, it actually will matter really soon. So yeah, it's an advantage for us. And when we look at kind of our privacy, when we look at our security, when we look at our compliance, it is a competitive advantage for us.
Very cool. Very cool. Stacie, how about you?
So I'm in a way different situation. I have about 400 teenagers using computers. So we're dealing a lot with like adware, phishing emails, things like that. Our students are all over every part of the internet and clicking every single thing without thinking about it. So I think for us, it's just like, what can they find and how are they finding it and what is it doing to their machine? And it's not as high stakes as maybe like financial information or things like that, but it is a matter of, is that kid going to come to school today and not be able to use their computer when we're in 2019 and that's kind of what they need to learn. So I would say for us, it's just the adolescent brain is our biggest threat, and everything they can find with that.
Yeah. Which almost seems like a benefit in some way. You got pen testers.
Right.
That pay you to come and pen test.
Right.
All right, Akshay, how about you?
Yeah, from my perspective, we obviously Malwarebytes works with a lot of customers globally, and we recently published our State of Malware report. And there, one of the interesting findings were, we're seeing the number of malware infections increase year over year, 79% in businesses. So just seeing a rapid increase, and when you dive deeper into kind of what does that 79% represent, you see a lot of Trojans, you see malware, in terms of ransomware, you see adware, spyware. So those are some of the categories where we see the most increase year over year across businesses.
Yeah. I think from a security company point of view, the thing we deal with the most as far as kind of attacks and stuff like that, we get a lot of people pretending to be us.
Yeah.
Either tech support scammers or key crackers or false resellers, so that's a big problem. And it really hurts the integrity of our company's reputation when somebody's like, I call the representative and then they charge me $1,000 to install a 3-day trial,
Yeah.
All right, so the next question is for anyone that wants to answer it, where are the best places to put your security dollars if you have a limited budget at an organization? Like, what would you guys pay for?
When it comes to security dollars, the number one priority is governance. You have to meet all the regulatory requirements.
Right, yeah.
I mean, it actually takes up as much as you can afford. So obviously, that would take the topmost priority. It's a no-brainer. And anything left over, I would like to divide between preemptive actions and reactive solutions. So you cannot rely only one or the other. So you have to have reactive solutions. You cannot fully rely on the prevention mechanisms you have put in. And so basically, that is how I would like to divide the dollars.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Being non-regulated, it's a different world. So having come from financial services, you look at the world much differently as far as practical aspects of our company has to move up market. We have to sell. Like we're in the same business of small to medium business and selling our products. And when we think about how do you do security either on a limited budget? Well, number one, they've hired security folks, so that feels good. Mm-hmm. But if a company doesn't make that decision, sometimes cyber insurance is a great, like, hey, we checked the box. If something goes wrong and someone actually realizes it, maybe they haven't paid for solutions to realize it, that's another great control. But I think the big thing for me is thinking about end users. Mm-hmm. What is that experience like, and how can I make seamless controls that just protect them? Because I love training on awareness. I love the culture of security and privacy, but the reality is it takes one. Mm-hmm. It takes one email, it takes that one person masquerading, and if you can build in those automated controls around sandboxing emails or attachments, or if you can detect malware on the fly, I think those are elements that just make it easy, as opposed to like what the reality is, we're constantly battling these real threats that are happening. Mm-hmm. So the more you can get that low-hanging fruit, I think that's the way to go.
Absolutely.
We do have a really small budget towards security. We're technically a nonprofit, being a school, so we're not making money. Everything's going back into the school, and all we really have put money towards is using Malwarebytes. I was kind of thrown into cybersecurity. I don't think there are a lot of people working in schools with really intense cybersecurity backgrounds, and I really wanted something that would kind of do everything we needed for me, so that's why we use Malwarebytes. And the other thing we put money towards is security audits and doing things like sending out fake phishing emails, right, to our staff to see where they're at and what they're doing and what they know, because obviously teaching is really important to us, so focusing on our end users and seeing what's tripping them up, what are they falling for, things like that. That's kind of with our limited funds, those are the things we focused on, is teaching and then taking care of it really quickly in a way that like we don't need all of the knowledge to do.
Do you deploy your phishing tests internally, or do you hire a third party?
We've been hiring third parties, yeah.
Okay, yeah. We've done that a few times at Malwarebytes as well.
It's great. I mean, for us, it was interesting to see how people responded. We got that, I think the morning we went out, we got like 20 forwarding emails like, I think this is fake. And then another like dozen that were like, I clicked on this and then I realized I think it's fake. So, it was, we kind of got to see like the process. So it was really helpful for us, yeah.
It's nice that they admit it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't know what I did. Well, and the other thing we learned is that people don't know where the problem happens, right? So we got a lot of people like, I opened this email, am I okay? Thinking that just opening the email is gonna like spark this like computer explosion. And it used to, right? But it's not, it's a little more nuanced than that now, right? So trying to understand like, what is actually doing the damage has also been helpful to see where people were really like, oh no, was that the issue, or was it clicking it? Was it putting in my credit card information? Like what part was the bad part? Yeah.
I got actually a specific question for you, Akshay. What do you think about the security dollars in reference to hiring like a managed service provider or?
Yeah,
like that?
I think that's a great question. It kind of ties in, because at a high level, when you think about, how the cyber attacks are getting more sophisticated, a lot of times when we advise our customers, we say think about investing your dollars kind of in three parts. So one is technology, people, and process. And so one of the things that's really important is because to combat the attackers, you need kind of the best of all three. Mm-hmm. So you need the right technology. So in particular, like having advanced endpoint security that protects you from malware, really important, that does both the detection and the prevention and the response. On the process side, you need some best practices around how are you going to respond to a threat if you get breached. What's your playbook? And then on the people side, you need to have the right talent. And this is really where the MSSP question comes up. For a lot of customers, especially smaller customers, if they can't hire the right staff or train the right staff on cybersecurity, having a partner is a great way to go. And that's where we see a lot of pull from MSPs or MSSPs to help augment or take on the responsibility for managing their cybersecurity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, was it earlier this year, or I guess last year, it's 2019 now, we did do a kind of a survey report, I think it was one we did with Osterman, where we talked about the fact that small and medium-sized businesses were only had like a percentage of the budget the big organizations did, but they were just dealing with the same amount of threats. So yeah, that's really important. So these next couple questions, I'm just going to take two answers from. So whoever wants to answer it, just raise your hand. What's your stance on AI and its use or abuse in cybersecurity?
I can go. I just did this instead of hands up. I'm sorry. Thumbs up.
Fail.
I think it's like every answer. There's two sides to it, right? When we think of AI in the world of good, we're going to get better. We're going to get stronger. We're going to leverage artificial intelligence, natural language processing. Like these are things that are happening now that create more confidence in the tools that from yesteryear kind of worked, but you're seeing a higher hit rate. So if you're looking at static analysis, or if you're looking at the content of phishing emails, you can gain a better idea of how malicious or how bad something's going to be. So your protection, your reactive response becomes more effective. On the bad side, let's just take a scenario where we're seeing a huge rise where phishing is so much better than 5 years ago. Why? The language is better, partnerships better, the ecosystem of networks is a lot better. So now if you're using precursors with something like an AI and an LLP, or like you set up artificial intelligence chatbots to do a lot of the precursor attacks in games and other platforms, you can actually start to render that second level attack vector. And I think that's where, from our side, it's kind of cool to think we're fighting exactly what people are using on the inside to protect.
Yeah.
Fire
with fire.
I think if you really take the step back, though, it's really ethics of how you use artificial intelligence. And I think that's where even on our side, we can use it for bad as well. Can we gain insight? Can we use it for access to data? And I think there have been enough cases out there where if you look at, say, data scientists or fraud analytics, you have the opportunity to gain insight of well, how many credit card charges did this company have? What are they going to report to the street? And then can I hedge against that? There's a well-known lawsuit at a place I used to work at that exactly happened, and the person was caught by the SEC. So we're seeing that sort of rise in opportunity because there's no regulation. There's no really oversight into this, but we're in that early stage of new tech.
Yeah.
When it comes to AI, moving away from the realm of very precise decision making, it's a big difference. The good guys can try to put it to good use, but then the bad guys can also try to leverage the possibility of AI. The so-called unpredictable nature of the AI, if he's able to predict how it is going to work, then it can be really be put to bad use very quickly. So my quick guess is it's going to go down before it can go up. So we need a lot of learning to do through the AI, how the hacking is happening, how the people are reacting, the good guys, how they are going to their, profiling their behavior and everything, and then how the bad guys and even profiling their approaches to solutions. Then the AI system has to eventually evolve to the really having the right strength.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The development of it. And even though we may have, or say that we have AI or whatever in deployment now, or the technology exists, getting it to work perfectly is probably going to take a while.
You need the right data.
Yeah, you got the right data.
To train it, you need actually some bad guys truly doing some hacking, so that if this comes, don't do it next time.
Yeah. So that's
there is always like a 1 point of success for the bad guy before we catch up.
Yeah, and hopefully we deal more with, when it comes to AI and things, we only deal with an immense amount of false positives and not it missing stuff. So, all right, let's move on. Let's get another 2 answer one. I know you're going to answer this one. So how do you protect your students as well as protect your systems from the students? And this can work for students or employees.
Yeah. Oh wow! How do I protect my students from what? No, I think
themselves.
I know. From themselves. I think digitally, there's a lot of different places we focus, right? I mean, there's just the whole health and wellness aspect, right? That this has nothing to do with it, but there's a lot of protection aspects we need there. The other piece is just looking at the internet like we do looking at like the whole world, right? Like what we wouldn't send our students, our kids out into like the city alone with no map, no navigation, no way to get around. And I think in terms of using the internet, using computers, we have to go about it the same way. I fight against a lot of this like digital native ideology that like young people are just naturally equipped to handle every new technology thrown at them. And we're learning that's not true, right? They know how to like swipe and click and do all these things, but they don't understand what's going on in the background and what's happening when they use a computer all the time. So I think for us, it's a lot of teaching about what different like malware does a part of it, because they don't know a lot of times. We get a lot of just like, my computer's broken. And, I mean, that you get that with adults as well, but it's especially frustrating with 15-year-olds. And we get a lot, and my first question is, well, what were you doing? And they don't want to say, but it's usually streaming illegally is what we deal with a lot of, right? So it's like going to like a, 123 movie. I'm making up a name here, right, of .com, or it's downloading something illegally. It's a little less of like illegal music downloads. It's not as much of a thing anymore. It's much more of this streaming and going to a random website from another country that has somebody like hosting whatever video, and the pop-ups that come with it, things like that. So that's what we deal a lot with. So that's really tough to battle because they're not going to stop doing that. So what we've really done is just show them how to like run scans themselves. Like, so we have it set up that all the students can run their own Malwarebytes scan on their computer. And when they come in, I'll ask them, did you run a scan? What happened? And we'll go from there. But it's really just teaching them how to fix the error because it's not going to stop happening. And in terms of phishing emails, that's something we deal with a lot with adults. And for them, I'm still working on it.
That's really fantastic. And you're like, students go and because they're learning good security habits,
right,
without even realizing it.
Well, that's what led us, honestly, to get a software was kids were coming in and I was like just running scans on their computer and I was like, I feel like they should know how to do this. Like this is not that hard. And it's been actually a lot easier to get the kids on board with learning how to do that than the adults.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a shame thing. The kids don't want to come and like show us what went wrong. Or if it's just they want to take care of things and have the issue be over. So we are dealing with a lot less than we used to from teaching them how to do it themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Akshay, did you have an answer for that?
Yeah, sure. No, I'd share one perspective is we try to teach a lot of our users like how to be more cyber aware. And one of the interesting things is just from a framework perspective, trying to transition from just telling people what not to do versus explaining why. And so I'll give you just a really simple example. So one customer I worked with, they did this like, spear phishing campaign, teach you, hey, don't click on bad emails. And so they kind of told people, anything looks suspicious, don't click it. So they wanted to test people's aptitude of learning. And so they sent an email out to everybody in the company, said, hey, this is malware. The subject was, this is malware, do not click. And they just wanted to see how many people click it. And there's still over 60% of people still click it after doing the training. So part of the philosophy is like, don't just tell people what not to do, but explain to them why and what's the risk to the company. And so trying to get more education that really helps people understand, the why behind it, and then they're more likely to relate to it and actually take the training more seriously.
I hope so. I mean, there are a lot of companies out there that specialize in cybersecurity training, even the people that you use for your third-party phishing attack or training and whatnot. And like when I was working for the government, the military, we had these computer-based ones where you had to like click on a digital office and say, "No, I shouldn't have opened that email." But and I work in this industry, so I remember all this stuff. But I don't think that a lot of people do, and that's I think a challenge in our industry that we're still trying to overcome. I don't think anyone has a perfect answer yet on how to get people to pay attention and learn about security without being attacked first. So last question, just a real quick 1-minute answer. And this should be easy. What cybersecurity issues do you believe are on the horizon in this year or next year, and why do you think that?
I can take that.
Yeah. I mean, everybody should answer. I'd like to see everyone.
Okay. So within the recent years, there has been so much data theft from various sources. It could be any company that was hacked, but the endpoint is individual person's personal data that's out there, which can be put to enormous use by the hackers, because any kind of social engineering, you need the user profiles, which is out there, and then they can easily guess the passwords, easily guess their activities, and make use of that information in their social engineering attack to go one step further. So that is how hackers are going to corroborate the available personal data into varieties of hacking, either into their financial transactions or anything else.
Or even just for make better spear phishing attacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's on the super mature end. I think the big thing for me in 2019, 2020 is we're seeing more commonality where people are having cybersecurity awareness across the board. You're seeing investment in school systems, fintech startup, that's like, you're starting from the beginning. And I think while there are a lot of advanced attacks, I think there's going to be a greater prevalence of hygiene. So people actually having some contextually aware approach to security, and it's not this afterthought of like, hey, we're about to IPO, we got to do all this security stuff. It's, well, we started from the beginning, this isn't going to make us stressed out. And I think, having endpoint protection, knowing where all of your assets are, having an idea of how to stop business email compromise. I think there are a lot of elements here that we're going to see that spread more across every industry as opposed to fintech, healthcare, and then some of the rest of us, right? And I think that's going to be the big play for 2019, 2020.
Okay. Stacie?
I see a really big disconnect generationally between like sort of a trust in online tools and systems, right? You see a lot of people are like, I don't want to be on Facebook anymore. I don't want to put my information on Instagram anymore. You're not seeing that with younger people. I'm not seeing that with, teenagers. So I guess like my fear is similar to like what you guys were saying is just like, what can they take that data to create? What can they do with that, right? I mean, you're already seeing people saying that like Facebook 10-year challenge was just a way to get a bunch of images of people's faces to start creating algorithms of like fake people, right? You're seeing all of these things that sound really extreme, but with so much data online, like what are we going to start using that for? What are companies going to use that for? Are we going to stop hiring people who like a certain TV show because it's linked to them being late to work, right? Like things like that. So I'm just concerned at how that's affecting our future generations, especially younger people who aren't thinking about that and just posting every aspect of their life to the social internet.
Yeah, totally. And I think broadly, two categories of things that I see. One is I think we're going to continue to see more of what we're seeing. So you see 80% year over year. Now we're going to see more of that. So I think that's a given. I think on the other end of the spectrum, I think we are going to see more. Cyber attackers are some of the first to use the latest technologies, right? So we talked about artificial intelligence. We're going to see more of that. IoT, we're going to see more of that as well. We're going to have 50 billion IoT devices online in the next 2 years. We're going to see more IoT botnets and attacks of that nature as well. So I think like those are some of the areas where we're going to see, and also I think we. Sad to say this, but I think we're also going to see more nation-state attacks because cybersecurity is going to continue to percolate as a top investment, even for nation-states. So some of the key themes to watch.
All right, cool. I personally think that all computers will become sentient next year and kill us all. All right, folks. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this up. I think this is a really great session. I want to thank Krishnan, Ty, Stacie, and Akshay for your time and your attention and your answers on these things. I thought it was fantastic. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them in the comments or reach out to us on our Facebook or any of the other social media profiles we have. But otherwise, I've been Adam Kujawa. Thanks for being here. Talk to you next time.